Hello, Whitefish. I'm Sami Francine.
Hello, Whitefish. I'm Sarina Hart.
And today we are going to talk to you about Black History Month, specifically Montana Black history, but also Black excellence in our history.
Yes. And we're going to talk about people in the past. We're going to talk about our experiences as Black people in Montana.
We've got Wilmot Collins,
Mary Fields,
and many others.
Yes. And a nice historical note. This is the first Montana podcast to feature Black History Month.
So it's a big deal, and we're excited to chat.
Yes, I'm here for it. I'm so excited to share these stories and our experiences with you.
Yes. Sit back, relax, and let us lead you on a journey.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thrivers Coffee. If you would like to help support the fight against human trafficking, visit thriverscoffee.com to order your coffee and make a difference today. Go Pills are a blend of 8 nootropic neurochargers that support focus, clarity, attention, fast recall, and decision-making. These have actually been tested by some of the U.S. military's top special operators who have given rave reviews to Go Pills. You can get 15% off your order when you use the code HELLO15 at checkout when you visit gopills.com.
Hi, Sami.
Hi, Sarina. We are here today to talk about Black History Month.
And Black people.
And Black people in Montana.
Yeah. Here we are. And so I wanted to start with a quote because I looked up some cool things, and I've discovered that there were 3 Black newspapers in Montana in the late 1800s. And one of them had a core philosophy that I just really wanted to share. And it says, "It cannot be denied that our people, through force of circumstance, occupy a peculiar status in this country. We are not thoroughly known. Our better qualities are not presented fairly to the public. Montana has a right to feel proud of its 2,500 colored citizens." And that's in 1894.
And here we are talking about Black excellence today, because
Yeah.
I think for both you and I, talking about Black excellence is important for Black History Month. I feel like sometimes when we think about Black history, we think about the trauma that it carries and the negative impacts that it has on our history. And even though I don't want to disregard those things, we know so little, especially about Montana, about the Black people that came before us and the Black people in government and the Black people in power that have went before us. Mm-hmm. You know, I think one of my favorite things to think about as a kid from Montana, we talk about cowboys and all that stuff. I think that the statistic was there was every 1 in 4 cowboys was Black. And like that's something that we don't see in movies. We don't talk about, you know, we think about cowboy culture here and it's everywhere, but there's Black identity in that, you know, and even though I didn't end up being the cowgirl my dad wanted me to be, I still love to know that, you know, in every area of life, you know, there is Black influence. You know, music comes to mind, fashion comes to mind for sure, but we should talk about the judiciary system. We should talk about, you know, healthcare. We should talk about the, you know, mail and government and things like that. And so when we get into that stuff, you know, even the Olympics, things like that, I mean, we are everywhere. We are coded in everything. And so instead of just focusing on the doom and gloom of our story, I think today, you know, for me, it's to talk about all the people that came before us that give us this platform today to celebrate what it's like to be awesomely Black.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. Should we start about our families maybe?
Yeah.
Since, you know, we're here.
Yeah.
Might as well start here and then we can move on back.
Yes, we'll start with ourselves.
We'll start with ourselves.
So
I know a lot of people probably know a lot about you here, but I don't know if people know my history all that much. Can I just start with myself?
Let's go.
Okay, so I'll start with as far as I know, which is most of my grandfather. You know, his parents, his mother was white and his father was Black in early 1800s, backroads, Louisiana. I'm like, wow, how'd that happen? And stuff. And they I saw a picture of her, and she did not look like somebody you would mess with. I was like, what? And so out of 3 brothers, he passed as white, very, very light skin. He had blue eyes, very, very silky hair. And he became a surgeon, got into med school, became a surgeon, and moved the family to California. And it was just like out of the Jim Crow. He's like, no, I'm out of here. And so, then my grandmother, she is part French down in New Orleans. And it was cute because, when she was kind of in her last stages, I was like, we never talked about family. They never talked about, they were not interested in looking back. They were very, very modern people.
Yeah.
And so one day I was just like, who are your parents? Like what, or who? And she's like, well, one was a free jack nigga. And that's all I got. And I was like, all right, okay, so we have slaves, we have free people, and stuff. She's like, I don't know, she didn't know very much about even her own history. And maybe too, she was, kind of, not all the way together there. But grandfather surgeon, mom wanted horses, so she's like, I'm going to become a doctor, and got her dream. And was a radiation oncologist, dad dermatologist, sister is now a psychiatrist, and I'm a drummer because I figure a successful family has one artist in it, and stuff. So,
but talk about Black excellence right there.
They were excellent people. They are excellent people.
Yeah.
I love my family.
Yeah.
They're great human beings, and so proud of everybody, and just full of so many different types of people in our family. I just love it.
Did you feel, we have obviously a different experience. Did you feel empowered to be a Black woman when you were younger?
No, because I grew up, we started off in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I was born in Hawaii, started off in San Francisco growing up. But then because mom wanted horses, she moved my sister and I to a very small town called Linden, California. And I was the only Black kid in my school and one of 2 Black families in town, even though we lived nowhere near each other. Yeah. And so I was the first Black kid all those kids had ever seen in person.
Yeah.
And, very much just compared to the Cosby kids, you're the good kind. And so, because parents are doctors and all that jazz. And so it was very, my mom was very much, people are people, individuals, take people as individuals. You're not, you're not going to like everybody and not everyone's going to like you kind of philosophy from very, very, very young. Yeah. And I had animals. Animals were my best friends when I was growing up because
to this day,
humans can be troublesome, and so and complicated. And so I lived relatively sheltered. TV was my outlook. TV and reading were my windows to the world, really, and so I didn't get to really interact with a lot of Black people outside of my family. Yeah. My family, the relatives from the South, because I was this California kid, were not really receptive to me, very receptive. They really picked at me a lot and everything, so they didn't leave the greatest impression to me.
Yeah.
And then in California, getting older, it was like Black people thought I was very strange because I, didn't sound like them, had straight hair, all that. So it was kind of like got it from both sides, like, where do I belong, and I never really, I was aware I was a different color, but I wasn't aware of being perceived differently, like truly being perceived as something and perceived in the metric of worth. Did not know that until one day before we were going to high school. We were in 8th grade and we're looking at the high school across the street. And me and these girls are sitting there, and I'm just like, oh, my God, there are going to be so many cute boys. I can't wait. And they're like, nobody's going to date you, Sarina. You're Black. And I was like, and that was the moment I realized I was really perceived differently and perceived as lesser and not worthy of certain things. And so that was the beginning of just kind of the identity crisis, like truly, where do I belong in this, and stuff. And so, yeah.
I resonate with that in my own ways. Being from Whitefish, my biological dad was a giant white Irishman, and my biological mom is a very petite Black woman, and she did not like Montana. So she was gone when I was 4, and I have not seen her since.
Wow.
So the representation was myself and my brothers. And my dad was from Chicago, and his parents, my grandparents, were part of like the Rainbow Coalition at the time when he was a kid, and grew up always talking about how he always went to bat for Black people, and he like loved our Blackness. Now, before we get too far into that, even in 2020 when I talked about my dad, there's like this perception that he's a really great person, and there's complexity and duality in that. So for me, I'm going to talk about the good parts in this. That doesn't mean that that's the only part of this, and that's just really important for me to say. But one of the things that my dad did was celebrate our Blackness all the time. And my dad loved Black culture. My dad loved Black movies. Like, we weren't allowed to listen to like pop music as kids. We listened to old soul. People were like, what do you like? And I'm like, have you ever heard of Etta James? They were like, what? And it's like, oh, I mean, like Beyonce. And I loved Beyonce too, but I had this. But then I loved like, The Cure and all of this stuff, because we just listened. My dad just wanted the music in our home to be life-giving and not just like bubblegum pop in the background. And so my dad, to this day, I don't really get the answers to these questions, but like he knew how to do my hair. He always knew how to, like I was just telling you, like he ordered my grandma would send stuff from Chicago to Montana so that my dad could do my hair, because there was no products here that you could buy. And, my brothers and I, it was very similar. Like, we knew we were Black, but we didn't know why that made people treat us differently. And we tried really hard to be good enough all the time. And so I definitely was fearful of my Blackness, because I think deep down to my core, I loved it. I loved my big lips and my thick thighs. And I loved that, and anytime people brought up dancing, it was like, well, she knows how to dance. So I was like, yes, I do, but like for the wrong reasons. But also as a kid, you're like, yeah. And, I loved that I was always the most vivacious, and I loved those parts of me, but it also seemed like a gimmick for other people. And as soon as I caught on to that, I felt the need to change it. And so then it became about being the most well-spoken. It became being, trying to be, on brand with the trends of fashion at the time, which didn't fit my body. I remember just wearing skinny jeans and my brothers being like, Sammy, your butt crack's hanging out. And I was like, no, I look cool. What? And so, and then it was just kind of like every sleepover, the parents of my friends would just be like, oh, you're such a good kid. You're so, you're so smart and so talented. Some people, your kind isn't always like that. And I remember just being like, what does that mean? As a kid. But at the time, it, not knowing that it was a microaggression, it felt like a compliment. And it felt like, almost like a praise kink as a kid, to be like, just tell me I'm a good Black girl. And I like craved that. And so after my dad died, the identity crisis got larger, because my amazing, beautiful parents that adopted us, they had no context for children, but they definitely didn't have context for Black traumatized children, and even though that they were from California, and, didn't see us any differently, they didn't know what to do or how to raise us or even how to speak to us about the things that we were, confronting. Because it was very similar experiences of, nobody wanted to date me. My high school boyfriend was a kid that moved here from Michigan, and he grew up around Black people. So him and his family were like, she's great. But everyone here was like, I don't want to date you, but I definitely want to be with you behind closed doors and in secret. And for me, I was just grasping at straws. I wanted to belong, and because I love my community. And at the time, I don't think, because there was no other representation. There was Black families that moved in and were gone just as fast, and so, there was a few other people of, ethnic backgrounds around, but we were the Black kids. And, my brothers were good at sports. I was good in music. We all were pretty smart. And as long as we were behaved, we were well received. But if we acted out or did something that got us in trouble, it was set apart from the same kind of consequences that other people were receiving.
Sure.
And I remember as a kid just thinking, why is it different? Why am I treated different when I try so hard to be good? I didn't want to talk Black. I barely listened to hip hop with my friends because I didn't like that, And then once hip hop became kind of popular, you get to 6th grade and stuff, everybody starts listening to it. People are like, "Can I say the N-word?" I was giving out black passes all the time, thinking that I would earn love, and it just came with a lot of weird memories of people saying the N-word when I was really young, and me being like, "But I don't even say that." Like I said, I'll wrap it in my car because that's the one privilege I got right now. But I remember I left here and I moved to Hawaii, and that was, because I'm light skinned, I kind of looked island girly. And I remember the first time in my life, I just wasn't the center of attention, and I loved it. It was just like, oh, nobody asked me what I was. I was 13 the first time somebody asked if my little brother was my son. My French teacher in high school asked if I was married to my older brother because his last name was Boyd and mine was Boyd Ferroni. And I wrote Boyd on a paper, and so she pulled me out of class to just find out what that was. And I was like, we look like twins. We do. If you see pictures of my older brother and I, we look the same. And I just remember being like, why would you think that? And why would you think, are you asking other little 13-year-old girls if their siblings are their children?
Seriously, you're like, this ain't Alabama.
All right, I was like, what? I was like, you guys have seen me grow. Right. We do
crazy,
it too.
Dude, that's crazy.
Right. And so I remember just, feeling so relieved to be somewhere else, and so relieved that my Blackness wasn't always the center of conversation. And then I moved to Northern California, but it was a pretty similar experience. It was still very much a white community, but nobody was really treating me differently, except the people that were from Montana that I was living with. Because again, I might have been drunk and acting a fool, but I wasn't doing that alone. But because of who I was and the expectation to be better or not, it was always at play. My mistakes were held under a magnifying glass. And so when the decision was made for me to move back to Montana, I decided that I just wanted to be, I just didn't care anymore. And I was also going through a bunch of other things in my life and being misunderstood, and I finally just got to a point where I was so tired of explaining myself. However, I didn't know who I was at all anyway. Because again, I'd never even thought about what does it mean to me to be a Black woman? And again, talking about the Black excellence, all my life, the only thing that you heard about Black people is that they were resilient and strong and they overcame. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've also been living that my whole life. And it's a burden that I don't want to carry all the time. So I came home, I went crazy. I did. I was like, I'm in my 20s. I'm back in my hometown. Everybody here parties. I want to party. I want to be, and even though, and again, I'm also wildly aware of some of the things I did. I also was blacked out for most of them. But I'm wildly aware of the energy that I was exuding. My issue is that the people around me were doing the same things. However, I was held to the standard of disappointment. My actions were too much. And the only thing that set me apart from what I was doing, what other people were doing, as far as I can tell, was my skin color. And then in moving forward in 2020, when I had my viral moment, I was faced with these questions, these hard-hitting questions about what does it mean to be a Black woman for the first time. And I wanted to be like, I just realized I was Black, and only in that moment, and not because I hadn't realized I was Black, but I realized in that moment, me lifting up my sunglasses and looking at that big white man, to be like, hey, what's up? In that moment, I realized that was a black and white thing for people. For me, it was just a moment of being like, you're drunk and yelling at high schoolers.
Right.
Get a life.
Right.
And again, how many white men have been in my face? I've been in abusive relationships, had my ass beaten by white men. I had a white father that was traumatic, terrible white boyfriends. He was just every white man that I've ever had to deal with who screamed in my face and told me I was unworthy. So for that moment, for me, it was just like, I'm used to this. You're going to look at me. And for what it, perpetuated after that was amazing. But again, I kept being like, I'm the wrong Black girl to ask, because I just realized that I have to start talking about what this means to me, and I've never thought about it. I've actually ran from it. And so it was cool because on one hand, I had to learn so much on the fly. And on the other hand, I realized I knew nothing about Black people that wasn't fed to me in school. And so since then, it has been about, not only identifying who I want to be as a Black woman in this community, in this world, but like who has gone before me and led the charge of being not only resilient and strong, but excellent and hilarious and vivacious and colorful and bold. Like, I want to talk about Black people like that. We are not here in mourning and suffering as much as our government and everybody else wants to put us in that picture frame. Right. But, we have our struggles. But, I mean, I love being a Black woman.
I do too. And like you said, it's like that sense of anonymity when you go someplace else is so freeing, because as soon as I graduated high school, that's one reason why I did so well, because I had to get the heck out of that town and to cruise right back to San Francisco, right back into everybody everywhere. And like you said, it's just like, I'm not a Black person, it's like I am a person in this stew of just glorious diversity. And so I did not think about, Blackness in that sense, because it was just like, you could just, you were whatever you wanted to be. Yeah. And I stayed in that. And it really wasn't until moving to Montana, being in that, situation of being one of very, very, very few again, that it started to come up, and it's just like, what are you kidding? And the man I was with at the time coming home and just hearing, in class at FECC, somebody talking about Black people don't swim. And he's like, actually, my wife swims like a fish and can outswim you guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Read a book. And it's just like, are you serious, dude? Or like you were saying, like, people are going, Black people don't ski.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Black people do everything.
It's insane. And for me, it wasn't really until Instagram. Until Instagram, where I could all of a sudden look up things going on in Africa. Right. Like, actually look up fashion, look up what Black people are doing. Right. And then all of a sudden just going, being so intrigued and so interested and so, but the imagery, it was something about the art, and like you said, fashion. There was something about seeing Black people, like you said, in this excellence and this beauty and expression that I was like, oh my God, I started swallowing stuff up. Yes. And then 2020, which was very interesting because I was working at Coffee Traders at the time. So it was like I was so exposed to people, and it got to a point where I couldn't sit outside and drink coffee. When I was like, are you okay? You matter. People driving by just saying the craziest stuff. For a while there, I was going to start charging people lecture fees because I was like, and like how you feel. I was like, I am not the representative of Black people. I'm a ridiculous valley sounding California girl, you know? But yeah, it's like, okay, I guess I am right now. And so like you said, what does this mean to me? And that was a really crazy time. I remember the worst of it being something happened again. Another Black man got killed by the police. And I just remember just wanting to rip everyone's skin off because I was so tired of seeing color at all. I wanted to see red of blood and white of bone. That's it. That's all I wanted to see. And I remember calling Coffee Traders and going, I can't come in. I want to kill somebody. Yeah. I want to fight. I want to fight. And they were like, take all the time you need. And I didn't show up to work again for a week. And they were no questions asked. Yeah. And that company, they are amazing in that they gave me space. They gave me whatever I needed. And I was so grateful to them that I am in the midst of all this. And yet my employer was so supportive. And I was like, I sat at home just going, what does this mean? What is wrong with this country? What is wrong with people here? That we are here in 2020, like, it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. And then
just
oh, because, we want to say, or, he was, doing drugs, he was on fentanyl. Does that mean he deserved to die if those are true words? I mean, if that's even true. And
again, white people on drugs.
What the fuck are you talking about? We live in Montana. Meth is a problem.
Cocaine.
And it's not, and the black people aren't leading that charge because we're barely here.
Yeah.
So, that was the thing.
And like you said, certainly we don't need to be singled out for being the drug dealers and drug addicts and all that stuff. We have plenty of fight on our own. Thank you very much.
And so for me, I mean, in 2022, it was just also the desensitization of having to argue whether that man's life was worth it or not is crazy. And that was the same thing for me too, because at that point, it's not like the many deaths that came before him didn't affect me, but that one, because of me being wrapped up in that movement, and then watching those 9 minutes over and over and over again, it was just I feel like the conversation should be shifted as to why we're accepting this at all as a people.
Yes, as a people, this kind of treatment of anyone.
I don't care who it was. Stop bringing up their gender. Stop bringing up their drug use. Stop bringing up their criminal history. I don't bring that up every time somebody from my past shows up and wants to argue with me. I look at the jail roster every day, mostly because once I saw my photo in the jail roster, I want to see everybody else's. But I know what everyone's doing, So with that said, it just for me, that was the beginning of wanting to know more, so that when I did talk to people, because I should have charged a fee for what I was doing then too. It was just kind of I wanted to always shift the conversation, because at that time in the world was really dark, and we really haven't shifted too much out of that. But at the time, for me, I was having this revelation. I was I want to be a black woman. I'm in. This is actually, because I've always had this spirit, this hunger to, I'm a natural born leader, and I love to speak, and I love to be a part of healing and change and all of that. And so in that moment, I was oh my God, for the first time, I get to use my voice for something more than a drunken conversation or I love you, man, blah, blah, blah. I was I have something to say, and even then at the time, all the podcasts and stuff got cut and you got the same story, rewashed every time. But even then, it was just the beginning of this really big healing work for me. Because again, I was just I don't care what you guys think. I don't care what you're hearing. This is my life. You're getting the story clips, and I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you everything. Yeah. And so that was the beginning. And then once you start, it's a quick Google search to just be Black Montanans in history. And then it's just there's so many. There's so many. And I don't know what the curriculums are doing now at the public schools and things, or any of the schools, I should say. But I know for me, you learned about Martin Luther King, got a sprinkle of Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman was thrown in there.
Sure.
But it was just this glossed over and these three names that you heard. And when you hear about Rosa Parks, but there was actually a 15-year-old girl that came before her that was actually that story, but they had to use Rosa Parks so that we weren't talking about a 15-year-old being pregnant in the back of the bus, So when you start looking into these stories more, you're kind of oh my God, there's so much more information. Why aren't we talking about this? And again, even just the slavery talk, yes, slavery was, is, and will always be bad, because it's not gone. It's changed forms in some ways, but it's still very much alive and well in our country and the world, but hearing about that over and over again, the trauma of that is real. And then feeling it in your own life, having to fight for positions at work, or being overqualified, but somebody else getting the job because, I used to work at Glacier Medical, and I got, confronted about my hair not being nice enough, my clothes not being, what the professional world should be wearing. It was just, I was wearing the same clothes. It's just, I have a different body. I can't do anything about that. I came with hips. I just was differently shaped than most people. And it was always a reflection that I was different and it wasn't acceptable. And even we were just talking about it, shaving my head was this kind of F you to beauty standards, because I was just my hair, I can't do anything. I don't know anything about it. And so it was this glorious moment of just being free from all of that. And so, I feel since then it's just, redefining what it means to me. I don't, having, being half white, half black, for many black people, it was too late. I had people, even the black community, when I had my moment, that were why do you think you get to do this? And every time I was like, I didn't set myself up for this. I woke up that next day to all the 10,000 people talking about me on the internet. And I was like, oh, my little extroverted heart is a little nervous, And then white people being like, she's definitely not one of us. I was like, so where do you want me? Does anybody want me? And then I was like, you know what? That was it. I wanted me, and I learned how to love me. And that's where this journey really began. And so...
So tell us exactly what happened in 2020.
Yes. So in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, and there's many other men and women at that time, and those stories were being told more at a popular rate. There was a clickbait at that point. Everybody was getting shot by the police. There was actually a group of high school kids in Whitefish that were standing out on Baker Avenue with signs. And I remember driving by one day and being like, I've made myself the token black person here in my mind. So I drove by and was like, if they're out there, I should be out there. And at that point, I never, ever wanted, I would say the right things and do the right things and be like, yeah, I advocate for this and that. But I was never one to be front and center at something like that. Besides the fact that it felt unsafe, I didn't want to be the center of attention because of my blackness. But I also felt so inspired by those high schoolers that are now in college and doing beautiful things. Emma Treeweiler, this sweet little black girl from here too. So many cool teens that were just empowered to do something. And so I was inspired. So I went out there for a couple days and was out there every day. And Bonnie Sepnick's out there, pestering the traffic. And then one of the days, it had gotten pretty big at that point. I think it was like the third or fourth day we were out there. And we all know his name now. Jay Snowden was, circling. He left the VFW and was just circling the block, screaming from his car and whatever. And people had done that. People had come up and asked questions. People had come up and been kind of annoying and aggressive, but they mostly moved along. But eventually he got out and came up and he started, yelling at kids and getting in their faces and stuff. And,
What was he yelling?
It's white lives matter. Fuck you don't know, you're a bunch of kids, blah, blah, blah. And he was just getting in kids' faces. And then he turned around and locked eyes with me. And in that moment, I knew, you know when somebody's going to come talk. And he came up and he just called me the N-word and was like, white lies, blah, 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 and said all this stupid shit. And all of a sudden, I just was like, whatever. And I just lifted up my sunglasses and looked at him. And I just felt empowered to, one of the things that my dad, my biological father, said to me as a kid is that no matter who they are, no matter what people are doing to you or saying to you, if somebody attacks you, make sure they look you in the eyes. They have to acknowledge that you're human. So many times I have not been acknowledged as a human. My mistakes have been broadcast in a way to push me down in shame. And so in that moment, I just lifted up my sunglasses and was basically just like, you're going to see me. Because I'm somebody's little girl. I was a child once. All these people who advocate pro-life, blah, blah. I was somebody's kid. Why the hell are you screaming at me now? Why do you? So that was it. And somebody grabbed the perfect photo. If you actually look at that photo, my longtime therapist is standing right next to me. We have that forever. And it took the world by storm. I was on every international news network, national, international. I've spoke at 3 different colleges. I've done numerous podcasts. I've talked in schools. I've done all sorts of stuff since then. And like I said, as much as it was so special at that time and I felt super empowered, if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would do it all differently. And that's kind of also why I'm here today. And it's not because I would say much differently, but I would do it from a different standpoint. Because even then we were talking about the suffering. And Black people, we are in suffering because, society will not allow us out. Except to acknowledge, give us petty thank yous for being trendsetters, for being hard workers, for making the music that your soul, craves. We get the accolades for that, but we're also, if you're not good, you're bad. And that's because again, being a Black person, I don't think all Black people are good. Yeah. There's no nuance. I'm not going to say that we just want to stop, I would love to stop talking about everything under the guise of black and white, but we also have to do, I'm a firm believer, to heal something, you have to heal it from the root. And until we can acknowledge this stuff and these patterns and the way that we've approached this topic for all this time, we aren't going to change. And I want to change the story because I'm a powerful Black woman, but there's tens of millions of powerful Black women that have gone before me whose names we'll never know, whose voices we didn't get to hear. You know, even doing this, the reading and stuff for this today, learning about people I didn't know or even the credit that they deserved. I mean, even thinking about like York from Lewis and Clark.
Right. I mean, Lewis and Clark.
He has such a small, we talk about him so minimally in that story, but like he was the first, you know, predating, you know, the U.S., like he was the first Black man to technically vote. They gave him voting rights on that ship and things like that. And when you think about that, like, why weren't we talking about that? Like Lewis and Clark, besides the fact that I don't want to get into that story anyway. But like, you know, Sacagawea, that type of stuff, or these like powerful people who were, you know, out of their comfort zones in a huge way, had such a huge impact. And we glaze over that of their stories.
Well, and two, the fact of the matter is they depended upon people of color to succeed and to completely take the accolades without giving credit to the people that made it possible for you to survive. For you to survive and even have a name in history.
I mean, who do you think the white man was talking to the Native Americans and like really being able, I mean, without Sacagawea and York, they didn't have that diplomacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And they most likely probably wouldn't have survived it.
Right.
You know, along with all of the others that came to this country and were taken in and saved often by the Native Americans because they were starving, because they had no way to live in these environments, and to turn around and not only give credit, but backstab. Completely betray
right.
and whatnot. And yet to, one, continually oppress that segment of the population to this day, to not give any credit and to tout their excellence.
Right.
You know, and completely refute and deny the reason they were able to
conquer,
be perceived as excellent, because
right.
I don't consider excellence when you have to deny
rape and pillage.
And the rape and pillage and do all that in order to get that excellence, you know, or inherit that excellence.
Yes.
You don't get to claim that either, you know. And so it's like, call it out. Let's call it out.
Let's call it what it is.
And like you as a person, I think a real turning point came to me too when I learned the term white frailty.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is interesting. This is interesting because of the fact that I always have felt that I was very, very, very strong, even as a kid, for just dealing with what I was dealing with. And watching, you know, other people break down over things to me that seem very, very minor.
We didn't get that privilege.
Yeah, but that concept, and it's interesting because I've had moments in Whitefish where I have seen people be bullied. Just watch it happen, and then, you know, step in. Like simple things like standing in line. Some big white guy lumbers up. I'm like, excuse me, there are humans here in front of you. You can go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then women coming up to me, thank you so much. I just didn't know what to say. I was like, you need to stand up for yourself.
What do you mean? Say something.
Stand up for yourself. There's so many examples of that, and it infuriates me because it's like, you want to say you're superior, and
but what
yet
are you doing
won't
without us?
even stand up for yourself. I'm sorry. I was like, I just don't believe that. I'm not going to.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
When something goes, when shit hits the fan, who are you looking for?
Yeah.
The strongest one in the room. Well, you've told me I'm the strongest one in the room my whole life. I mean, my whole life.
Yeah.
You're so strong.
And now
you're so
I'm
brave.
really starting. I'm really believing it.
Oh, yes.
And so it's like, now, okay, world, you're going to have to deal with me now in this space, because I am growing into my space. I shrank myself. Like you said, I shrank myself for a long time to fit in, to make sure that I'm doing everything right.
If they just treated us right, they would have kept us small. Though that's true. I mean, if I had been treated better, maybe I would have just, you know, continued to be the polite, kind, straight-haired black girl that they wanted me to be. maybe that's, so yeah. But again, now I can't go backwards. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And I'm not angry, but there is power in feminine rage that we aren't going to undermine. However, an angry Black woman is a powerful Black woman. Now, I do believe that how we channel our anger and what we do with that is important.
Very.
But it is not going to be dismissed, because why the hell wouldn't we be angry? Why am I still trying to prove my worth to you?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I still sitting next to you while you have conversations trying to find diplomacy and one white man getting shot while a Black man getting shot? Well, he deserved it. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing the work for you, and I'm not going to make you feel more comfortable about it. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some incredible Montana Black people.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just mention one thing as far as excellence that just occurred recently? Alpine Theater Project's Lady Day at the Emerson Bar and Grill. Angela Wildflower, that actress, the most stunning performance I think I've ever seen in Whitefish. Most stunning show I think I've ever seen in Whitefish. To see Billie Holiday in that state of a mess, to hear her music, to hear her experience in Jim Crow South in the 30s, But my God. And then there was an audience member who actually called the playwright during the talkback. She got to speak to this playwright and thank him for these words, and him thank her for putting that out. And to be in an audience to hear. It was the first time out loud I'd ever heard somebody talk about a slaveholder impregnating his house slave, and that's how they got their family name. I was like, that's how I got my family name. I have never heard that out loud from somebody in a piece of art like this before. I felt so seen. It felt so good, But incredible performance wherever you are. If you live somewhere, demand they bring that show if you have a theater company. It's remarkable. Remarkable. Yeah. So that was modern. But
hey, we
shall
can bounce
we go
around.
back a little?
Yes, let's do it.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I think one of my favorite things that I just learned while I was looking up was Mifflin Wister Gibbs.
Oh.
He was appointed as a judge in the Virginia City in 1869. He was one of the first Black judges in the American West. And talk about representation, to even at that time in our history to have a Black judge this far west, like that just really blew my mind. And that was
a good point.
Yeah, the Reconstruction era type thing, and to have a Black voice at such a pivotal moment. And that's not a name I'd actually ever heard before when I was looking that up. And so I think for me, like, that's just, there's been Black leadership here the whole time. And that was just really important for me to even like start with that, because 1869, we're talking way back. And so the fact that like that is not taught in our schools, as far as I know. Maybe somebody can tell me if they've heard that name before, but that really impacted me, because that's even like watching our judicial system now and seeing the Supreme Court and everything, like just to have representation. We deserve to have representation everywhere, and we have been made to feel like we don't have it. But when you look at history, we have been everywhere since the beginning, and that's in Montana. So that one really struck me at the beginning of my research. I was like, okay, Black King. Nobody told me your name, but I'm going to say your name.
Hell yeah. And now they know his name.
Yeah.
And so it was not for nothing.
Not for nothing.
Because,
it was real. It's a part of our history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. The one name that is relatively well known in Montana, Stagecoach Mary Fields, who I just adore. As an actor, I got to play her, or depict her in Zach Fawcett. He's a trumpet player in a local band, 20 Grand, and he has a project called Casa del Oro,
That we're both involved in.
Yeah, and he asked me to play Mary Fields, and which I was tickled pink because I'm 5'4", and she was probably around 6'2" and 200 pounds, and I was up on blocks looking down at people. I thought it was adorable, but just a badass human being from Tennessee, came here to help start a school for Indian girls with a Catholic nuns, but she drank too much and swore too much and smoked too much and fought too much.
As a black woman, I've been there.
She got kicked out of the mission, but the nuns appealed to the Montana government and got her job in delivering mail between the Cascades and the mountain range. And she would be out there by herself with a shotgun, driving a stagecoach. In the snow, if it got stuck, she would carry it. And she showed up on time. She was incredible. The mayor of Helena granted her a pass to drink in the saloons because they decided to pass a law that women couldn't, drink. And he gave her a pass. Like, she was amazing. But one thing I really was struck by is looking her up. I discovered there was an article by the actor Gary Cooper and stuff, and he wrote an article about her in Ebony magazine in 1959, which I didn't even know. Ebony magazine went back that far. I'm not even sure when it was founded. And that Gary Cooper was a huge fan of Mary Fields. I thought was so lovely.
Yeah.
That it's just this famous actor, and he loved this woman. This article was so beautiful. And so I just thought that was something really neat to discover.
Yeah, at the age of 60 was
and at
when
that time in the 1800s. Are you kidding?
Fact that you were alive at 60.
Yes.
And the fact that she just became,
You were super elder then at 60,
Yeah.
back then.
That was old.
Yeah.
Now it's young and spry still.
Yeah.
But, I just think that's so incredible. But again, even that name, people have heard her name before. I mean, I remember learning a tiny bit about her, but to really take in the nuance of that story, where she came from, how she got to be, and even the acceptance from white townsmen because of her reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, Gary Cooper said she truly was one of the freest people because she lived alone. She was doing these runs solo. I mean, not to be corny, but that's the closest thing to a spirit animal I can think of because I have a very, very independent streak, and I consider myself, being of the generation that I am, being Gen X, one of the first generations of women and Black people to be truly autonomous, to not need a man to get a checking account, to not be subject to Jim Crow laws. I can go into any swimming pool, drink from any fountain, go into any bathroom I want. I'm the first generation of Black person to do that, to not ever know what Jim Crow laws were like, And I've had people try not to serve me in restaurants before. I've gone through that kind of nonsense and stuff. But the joy is I can walk away and give my dollar to somebody else.
Yes. Somebody else will take my money.
Somebody else will be
just
happy
as
to
good
take
as
my
the
money.
next person.
And I get the pleasure of not giving it to you.
Yeah.
Because you're not my only option.
Right.
And so that's, a really, awesome place to be, because that's a woman that was living that way before when you could be told you can't.
Right. And there was nothing you could do about it.
And there's
then.
nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Because the law backed it up.
Totally. And also, just, with Mary Fields, too, I did just want to, even in the spiritual sense of what Mary Fields did, she was, and not that I'm a huge fan of the Catholic Church, but she did, she perpetuated, she was very deep in her faith later on in her life. And so even bringing the spirit, speaking the gospel was a really huge part of her story, too, for the Catholic Church specifically. Sure. And so for me, as a spiritual woman who has deconstructed from the church, because I still do appreciate, anybody whose values run so deep that they would be willing to put their life on the line and to risk it all to say that this is what I stand for. Yeah. So as a Black woman, Mary Fields, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, she's very cool.
That's very cool.
And I love when I learned about all the jazz clubs in Helena, Butte, Great Falls. Like, it blows my
Places
mind.
that you would never think.
Places that I've been that I don't recall seeing Black people, knowing that back then there was a scene.
There was a scene.
An amazing scene of music and just revelry and a community, which is like, that's the thing that is just like, and even I've only lived in Whitefish and Missoula in Montana and don't really have a sense of Black community, you know, but to think about the fact that these were vibrant Black communities going on, probably mixing, I'm sure,
right?
You know, and white people being exposed and enjoying, you know, music and food and revelry together and dancing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a golden time that must have been.
Right.
How cool.
Because even now, you know, the music scene, we're so lucky we have so many incredible artists, but I'm so grateful that, like, even right now you having your moment at the Red Room where you're like you're a staple there right now, and like, it's, for me, that's beautiful because I don't know any other Black musicians here that are representing us like that. True. You know, I mean, the Dunnigans are my family, so I'm very grateful. John Dunnigan's my uncle, Andy's my cousin, and they are incredible in the music scene, and love them, incredible. Mm-hmm. But to also have somebody I consider family to be out there and representing, and you know, when you play the drums, it's one of my favorite things. You know, it's because it is a spiritual thing, because it's something that brings you so much joy and exudes that. And there's something about Black joy, and especially when music is involved, that is undeniable. And so to know that places like Butte, which when we think about Butte, Montana now, it's like that scene from Wayne's World, like Delaware. We're in Delaware. That's like how I think about Butte. And so it's like, to think at one time they had a jazz scene. Yeah. I mean, is there anywhere in Montana right now that has a jazz scene?
You know, the last time I saw jazz in Montana, apart from this last show, was, I used to go to a jazz night regularly in Missoula.
Okay.
At the Badlander.
Okay.
And it was like martini jazz night. And so we'd sip our martinis and listen to jazz musicians from the area. And it was wonderful. I never missed it.
Right.
I never missed a night, because it was such a nice departure from anything else that was going on. Yeah. And amazing musicians.
Right.
It was wonderful and stuff. But that was the last. And seeing that show last weekend, I realized how much I craved diversity, how much I crave an artistic mess, how much I crave grit, you know.
That raw soul
energy that is, I feel, I don't know if it's the cities or if it's a demographic thing, you know, a diversity thing. It's a diversity thing. You know, it's socioeconomic diversity. It's demographic diversity, you know. And so, yes. It enriched my soul because of that. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, music has been, you know, it's timeless in our human history of how it brings us together. And there's incredible artists.
Drums were first, baby.
I mean,
drums
but it was.
flutes.
Last night I had my djembe recital after my 8-week course. So I mean, I am also, and even in that space, you know, how they even honored, you know, the West African culture behind it, and how we talked about that from the first class. I really appreciated that. But like, I don't know anybody who's not affected by music at some point in their life. And, you know, since the beginning of time, even through the Great Depression, you know, it doesn't matter what color you were. If somebody was playing music, you sat down and listened. You know, if somebody was, you know, giving a song of offering, it brought people together. You know, one of the things that, even for me in my deconstruction, every time I go to church with my parents or something, every time they're worshiping, I start crying. I don't know. Because it's that sense of community, and it's when, you know, when these voices come together to create, you know.
Well, it's a swelling.
Yeah, it's like, oh my
you
gosh. Know? And so like every time I've been to almost any concert, I'm like always in awe of that. But, you know, especially being from here and having, you know, going to a Black show or a concert, you're just like the soul. The soul. I remember being in high school in choir class, and they had us like all say our names, go around, say our names and what they bring to the choir, and everybody said all this stuff, and it got to me, and I was like, my name is Sami, and I bring the soul. And I remember everyone was just like, oh, and I was just like, why, what? But it was true. And it's not that I don't think other people and cultures aren't capable of that, but the generational trauma that we carry through our bodies, you know, for many Black people, you know, music is an offering. It's a part of us that we give. When, you know, it's not just a talent or a hobby. It's like, it's an expression. It's a way to funnel that rage. It's a way to, you know, exude that energy that we carry that we can't shake off until there's like some sort of movement with it, some sort of sound and beat. You know, that's why, like, you know, so many frequencies that we listen to and play to, you know, establish some sort of healing and time, you know. So for me, like, music is huge. You know, like I was saying, my biological father, there was no new music in our home. You know, listen to old shit. And, you know, one of my favorite, you know, early childhood memories, there's a few good ones, but it was that there was always music playing and we were always dancing.
Yeah. Like for me, music is always playing in my house.
Yeah, always.
One of the greatest compliments I ever received was from a girl after a show I did at the Northern. And she said, I see auras. And when you're playing, you are splashing blue and violet all over everyone. And to me, I was like,
but like those type of compliments, you can tell me I'm beautiful, you can tell me anything, but when you tell me that you feel that from me, when you
that's the truth. Because to me, as an actor, I feel I'm an interpreter. As a drummer, I feel I am in a direct conduit of the universe. It was my self-actualization moment, and Montana gave it to me. I started playing drums in Montana. I dabbled before, but I became self-actualized through that here. And to feel this direct connection in that this is my purpose. This is my purpose, giving the world this vibration. And I have a drum in my house that my friend River Rioto's father, Rio, he and I stretched this skin in my house. We sat on my floor making this medicine drum. And that drum has a white head and a black head to the mallet. And I have sound-bathed children in the forest with this drum. It speaks to the source, you know. And there are nights, especially when there's racial divide, something's flared up, you know. And there are nights when I will wake up in the middle of the night and I will grab that drum off the wall and I just go pick a side. And I'm just like, white people, you need to hear this.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. And just fill my space with whatever intent I have to say. Then flip it around. And I'm just like, to whomever people, you know, Black people, whomever is this in the mix, you know, of discord, whatever. And to speak to them, and it's just sending it out.
Yeah.
Because I fully feel no matter how small it is, what you send out has an effect.
It does.
It's a ripple, you know. And for me to play the drums, I feel like I am of the greatest service to the universe that way because of the joy it creates in me. That means I just gave the universe that much more joy that day, that moment. And that makes a difference.
And we
you
need
know,
more joy. You know, that Black joy. My God, like
all joy, black, white, red, green, purple, all the joy.
Amen. And like truly, like, and it is true. And I think the reason why I'm saying Black joy is because, you know, for so many of us, we just felt like we had to, you know, we have to be strong. We have to. It's like, no, go feel the earth beneath your feet. I skied as a kid, and then I took on snowboarding because in the 90s, ski boots were hellacious on your feet. And so I got into snowboarding because I was like, their boots are more comfortable. I was a terrible snowboarder. And then again, the representation, there was none. So I stopped. In the last 3 years, you know, taking up skiing again and just being like, oh my God, all Black people should do this. You guys want to feel like you're flying? Go skiing. You know, and like, you know, things like that, you know. And like running, oh my gosh. You know, I used to be so afraid of running in gym class when I was a kid because my butt bounced. Nobody else was, just going like this. Nobody else was doing that. And I was like, I don't like that. I feel like everyone talked about it, like, oh my God, Sam, your butt, it jiggles. And I was like,
oh my God.
Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. And like, and so when I quit drinking, I was like, I'm going to say yes to everything. And all of these things that people told me I wouldn't like, that Black people don't do, it's kind of a joke, but I'm like, I love white people shit, because I'm gonna colonize it and take it back to my people. Just joking, but truly, it's like there's just the fact that we even define things like that anymore, because I think the thing is what Black artist has not collabed with a white person. I mean, the thing is we want to collab. The whole thing is that we just want the credit where the credit is due, and to continue to feel empowered to keep doing it. Yeah. When time and time again, Black men and women are, their arts are painted as somebody else's, and the credit is given to somebody else, it's easy to lose inspiration.
Oh, absolutely.
And so
again, equal pay as well. You want to talk about losing inspiration, have me discover that you've paid me half as much as somebody else for something.
Right. And so I think even just talking about the arts, James Presley Ball, the photographer who captured the West, when I even think, and again, I'm not very well versed in the photography world as much as I used to be, but that name had been familiar. But again, in the 19th century, to have somebody of color capturing the West from their point of view, from their lens, and making,
I gotta look him up.
Yeah, making themselves known. That's incredible to me. Yeah, that people even took to that, I guess. And I mean, I'm sure it was more after his life too, but yeah, I just think in the arts, because of the things that we feel on a level that nobody else can not nobody else. White people may not understand. And I say that because we are in Whitefish, and we are talking about the Black History Month. And I'm not saying that white people don't have depth. I'm not saying that they don't have an understanding of trauma and things like that. But what I am saying is that there's things that run through our veins that white people will never understand, that we have to choose to understand so that we can heal that generational trauma. And that's the only thing I'm saying. So to have a Black photographer out here, even capturing what was happening at that time is really inspirational. And I think whether it's through music or art, the way that Black people have always chosen to share their vision and their emotions, their pain, their joy through an expression, it's beautiful. And I know for so many years of my life, when I was drinking and stuff, I couldn't even think about being artistic because I was just in the muck of being human. And so to having reestablished this connection with, my divine and my, my spiritual standpoint in this world, any sort of art that I do, it really is it's a way for me to express to people who I am. And I love that. And to do that from an authentic place, a powerful place, a place where he still could have been framed as, somebody bad, doing something bad, not in his lane, things like that, to fight against the powers that be, to say that this is so important that I'm going to do it anyway. I love that.
Yeah.
And Helena, when you think about Helena, Montana, again,
right.
The last time I was in Helena, even just going to look at the buildings in Helena, go to Helena. I don't know why we just go see it. There's so much history and it's such a beautiful little town. We went last year and I was just kind of I could do Helena. I don't know, but it's so rich in history. I mean, the fact that they have a black mayor.
Yeah.
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 Helena.
I know.
Wilmot Collins. Yeah. Like a Liberian refugee, which again, we can talk about, people coming here to get better in life. I mean, talk about making it as far northwest as you can go, essentially. Yeah. And then being the type of person that would be elected a mayor in Helena, Montana. I just think, I think a lot of times in the media, they try to paint it as though we're still struggling so much. And we are. We deserve so much more. Things are bad, But when you look at history and the things that they don't talk about, it is never, I mean, the fact that this was even possible, you know, it's, but not talked about and celebrated.
Yeah.
When it should be. But if we don't talk about and celebrate those things, then we can continue to perpetuate the narrative that things are bad and Black people are still fighting. We are still fighting, but there are so many of us that are victorious and succeeding and doing the things that, like, I mean, I remember being a little girl and just being like, do Black women go into politics? I mean, what do Black women do as jobs? Like, where's the representation? Especially here. I was like, I just wanted to be Beyonce because I was like, oh, that's who I know, you know? Like, I want to be the center of a, you know, a girl group. But I think also, you know, even with like what we're seeing right now with ICE and everything all over the country, I think with facts like this, it comes with complexity because, again, if you look at Montana's history, it's rich with Black history.
Yeah. And this is indisputable proof.
It's indisputable proof.
We're not all drug dealers and rapists and all violent, you know.
We're not escaping here to make things, you know, worse.
Yeah.
But it brings life and diversity, but like change and community to places.
Different perspectives.
I mean, it's not only are we capable of it, it's been done. And it's happening now. But we, again, to not have people speaking about this, then it's easy to be like, we've got so much to fight for. We do, but we have so much to celebrate too. And that's why I think it was Samuel L. Jackson at one point in an interview had talked about, you know, he didn't even like that they called it Black History Month because he was like, well, it's the shortest month. And like, Black history is just history. But it's been chosen to be segregated so that we can highlight white excellence and remind you that Black people had it tough. Yeah. Black people do and have had it tough, but we have been overcoming the whole time.
Yeah. And it's really a matter of one particular people just trying to keep themselves central.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, no, there are other people here. And now we get to know other stories and see how this has all shaped things. So historically, we don't keep making the same mistakes. And, you know, like I said, we can advance as a society together.
Right. And I mean,
but
this was 2000.
It's not going to happen unless others are acknowledged as well.
Right. And this was 2017, you know, and he's a veteran. You know, our community really loves to talk about taking care of our veterans. And so when we think about any of the wars that this country has fought, Black men and women have been there the whole time.
Yes. And systemically denied so much benefit from it.
Yeah,
the
and
GI
honor.
Bills, the honors, all that stuff. I mean, they talk about, you know, why certain people are not in, economically, you know, how they were held back because they didn't get the GI Bill and whatnot. So they couldn't buy houses afterwards, whereas white people could. And so I think people, too, have to, you know, in understanding that history, when they want to try and erase and deny systemic racism, that's one thing I really learned about when the whole critical race theory conversation started happening. And what was really the discussion, because I had white friends going, what, you just want us all to feel bad? And it's like, no, I want you to understand what you inherited and why you are in the position in this country that you're in. Because I'm just learning about it now, and I'm actually becoming really pissed off about it.
Right, because why would you expected these people that enlisted on their own to fight for the country that they love, but then were not rewarded the same things for that sacrifice?
Exactly.
How is that? I mean, how could you even justify that?
Yeah.
The fact that, like, you know, the narratives that, like, Black people were closer to animals than apes.
Oh, this whole subhuman thing, which calling out look maxing right now, because look maxing, I don't know if you guys know this trend that's called look maxing on social media and whatnot, is all about young people trying to optimize their appearance. And it's spearheaded by this guy, Kalavacula or whatever. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. I mean, it goes so far as to smashing your face with hammers in order to break the zygote bone and, like, puff up your cheekbones and all that. But there is one thing I saw just recently in a video talking about it, and it talks about skin bleaching and that ethnics, you don't want to look subhuman, so you need to start bleaching your skin. And that is a point of look maxing that they're talking about right now. These days, that's very popular with the young male population, especially. And I just was like, wow, I just read subhuman 2026. I just read the word subhuman and ethnic in the same motherfucking sentence. I am so pissed about that right now. And I'm like, I can't wait to run into a look maxer right now. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Okay, let's talk about, science here. It is such nonsense. And I think Richard Spencer was somebody that was actually promoting, the scientific subhuman kind of, narrative for a while there too. And it just, oh my God, if anything, that infuriates me more.
And I encourage anybody to read about what melanin is.
Yeah, thank you.
Because talk about magic.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to,
It's a protective measure.
I don't know.
It is nature at its best in evolution.
Exactly. So the fact that we've been, called these things, and it's like, I'm sorry. Yeah. My dad used to call himself the rock lobster all summer long. So.
Seriously, it's an evolutionary protective
I'm
measure.
sorry, but I'm just saying, and so even, again, that type of stuff. And it's 2026, and I feel like I've been saying this every 5-6 years. It's 2020. It's 2015. It's like this thing where even with, I remember, when Obama was president and everybody, was feeling this way and type. But do you remember how he used to just say all the time, for those of you who don't trust me yet, I want to earn that trust. I just want people, if there's still insecurity around Black people, there's still fear of the unknown around Black people, I promise you a majority of Black people will want to talk to you about it. Because those type of Black people that have maybe always had the confidence in being Black, they've been talking about it their whole lives. Those of us who've just woken up to the magic of the melanin, that's all I want to talk about too. That's why you and I always get caught up. It's I just want to talk how great it is. Look at this hair, look at this body, look at this music, look at this education. Oh my god. I think one of the other cool things I read talking about awesome Black people is Janae DeLoach, and I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but she was a Black. She went to Montana State University, 2012, represented Montana in the Olympics for the long jump. Did you know that?
No. Hell yeah.
What? Talk about just talk about somebody who, I don't think she's actually from here, but went to school in the state of Montana and represented us. Why aren't we talking about that? Yeah. Incredible. The fact that some gal that looks like me went and did that in 2012, the year the year after I graduated high school, I didn't know her name at all.
Yeah.
The fact that we had anybody from here representing us. We know that some names, the people who go and represent us.
I had no idea. Black athlete was at the Olympics
from Montana State. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So incredible. And that's what I'm saying. It's the world has made us feel like being Black is a burden.
It can feel that way because of the fact that I have to. There are some days where some things happen in the news. Some politician or Trump or somebody said something racial, right? And I'm sitting there brushing my teeth going, I know there aren't white people thinking about this bullshit right now. And I'm like, why do I have to be blurred? And why does my mind have to be clouded constantly with issues of race? It's there are days where, I'm just I don't feel like pulling up my bootstraps today. I am tired. I'm tired because I have to think about this thing that is so that is not even on the majority of people I live around's radar. Not even close, and it's just, it infuriates me sometimes because I'm like, where could I be right now? Where could if my mental facilities did not have to waste time thinking about those things and dealing with those things or being hurt by those things and having to spend energy healing from those things.
100%.
It's and so there are some times where, Yeah. You know, I get really peeved about it and stuff. And so, and I think that's one reason why I love living in this natural environment, because I can beat it out in the water.
Yeah.
I can take it out. Nature will take it from me, you know, so I don't have to take it out on the population around me.
Right.
Because there have been days that I have.
Oh, yeah.
And that feels horrible because I don't want to hurt other people.
Well, and I don't want to stoop to a level that's been played on me.
Yeah. And I'm not in a vengeance scenario.
No. And, you know, and even they talk about reparations, I think like you were talking about, you know, not getting the GI Bill and certain things like that, you know, not getting the step ups that certain people did. You know, for me, the reparations for this is not to have white people suffer. You know, everyone's like, they're taking white culture. Okay, first of all, tell me what white culture is. Somebody can tell me what white culture is.
Kid Rock.
And I'm like,
Don't get me started. I love my mom, but she's like, well, at the end of his, you know, his thing, he you know, talked about being saved. I was like, do you know he has a song about statutory rape? Like, I mean, I get it was 1993, but like,
yeah, just stop it, you know.
you can have Kid Rock. We don't want him. Yeah. You know, we're not trading anybody for Kid Rock. But okay, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. All I'm saying is, you know, I don't know any black person that's out there like advocating for reparations solely. What we want is just to be brought up to an equal level so that we can all feel like this conversation can end. Mm-hmm. That's what reparations are. Yeah. It's not like we want money for being black. That's crazy. We just...
I mean, if you want to cut a check...
You can give me money for being black, but I won't say no.
I wouldn't say no. I promise I would use it well, you know. But $5,000 isn't going to cut it.
It's not going to cut it. So all I'm saying is that, you know, for us to get to a point of healing, this type of recognition needs to happen. You know, today I feel like I've had literally the best time just kind of talking to one of my favorite black women about black excellence and like knowing that there's people in our community that are going to see this and hopefully feel inspired to do their own research, to find their own path and connection to these people in our history. That's beautiful. That's excellence.
Yeah.
And I live for that, you know, and I want to see our country heal. I want to see our communities heal. I want to see the burden that we carry for having to feel like we have to be the black woman in every scenario to speak up, say something, do this. Well, everybody's like, well, I didn't know what to do. Do you think we knew what to do? We just knew we had to do something, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I want to slough that burden off.
I want to slough it off, and I want to be a part of a community without having to be the token black person. But until that happens, I'm happy to do it. Because I got a lot to say, as you can see.
Yeah, same. Same. It's good stuff. Good stuff. I love you so much.
I love you too.